Good evening, everyone. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And had you have seen my Facebook little sneak peek of what I would be discussing tonight, we're going to talk about the January 6th committee hearing. Happened today, the little surprise hearing, with the testimony of Cassidy Hutchinson. Now, who is Cassidy Hutchinson? Well, according to Trump, he barely knew her. And the way that it's described, she may as well have been a temp or someone, just a random aide, really. Well, the thing is that Cassidy Hutchinson is a former top advisor to then President Trump's Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. Yeah, and had testimony of first-hand accounting of Donald Trump, Mark Meadows, and a few others on and about just before January 6th, during January 6th, and just a little after. So yeah, this is not a bombshell at all. No. Well, first of all, she did testify, and she did testify under oath, which we will discuss as we go along in this. But we're going to talk about first the key takeaways from her testimony. She did her testimony for about 2 hours, and there were some key takeaways. I'm taking this from abcgo.com, and to show the seriousness of how I'm going to take this, professional ranter of politics and so forth that I am. I'm wearing a nice shirt, and I'm going to betray my age a bit because I have to in order to read. So there you go. All right. So the key takeaways from this committee meeting. First key takeaway is that Trump's chief of staff knew January 6th might get really, really bad. Kicking off her account before the committee, Hutchinson said that Meadows had warned her on January 2nd that things might get real bad on January 6th. She said that Meadows made the remarks to Hutchinson after a meeting with Rudy Giuliani, who was at the point a central figure in Trump's campaign to overturn the election. After the meeting, Giuliani talked enthusiastically to Hutchinson about plans to go to the Capitol, she said. "It's going to be great," Giuliani said to her. Hutchinson said, "The president's going to be there. He's going to look powerful." When she walked into Meadows' office to relay what Giuliani told her, she said Meadows responded with a remark of how bad the situation may be on January 6th. That evening was the first moment that I remember feeling scared and nervous for what could happen on January 6th, she told the panel. Hutchinson testified that Meadows generally knew about the potential for violence on January 6th but failed to act. Both Meadows and Giuliani expressed an interest in seeking pardons over the events of January 6th. Hutchinson testified. Giuliani on Tuesday denied asking for a pardon. Meadows has not commented on Hutchinson's testimony. Second takeaway. White House lawyers worried about criminal charges. Several White House staffers expressed concerns about the legality of Trump intended to do on January 6th. Hutchinson told the committee. Specific crimes they were concerned about, she said, included defrauding the electoral count or obstructing justice. One point of contention was Trump's speech at the Ellipse. Hutchinson said she recalled Trump's lawyer Eric Hirschman urging speechwriters to avoid foolish language, in quotes, that Trump requested be included, such as the phrase, "fight for me," and "we're going to march on the Capitol." On the morning of January 6th, Hutchinson said the White House counsel Pat Cipollone, I'm sorry, I'm butchering that pronunciation, was adamant that Trump shouldn't accompany his supporters to the Capitol. Quote, "We are going to get charged with every crime imaginable if we make that movement happen," she recalled Cipollone telling her at the time. Point 3. Third takeaway. Trump knew his supporters were armed. With the committee displaying text from January 6th as visual aids, Hutchinson recalled that Trump was furious with the crowd size of his rally at the Ellipse on January 6th and with advisors who didn't want to let in individuals who had weapons. Well, he's still worrying about crowd size. Oh, that doesn't surprise me in a bit. Those weapons included pistols, rifles, bear spray, and flagpoles with spears attached to them, officials warned, according to Hutchinson. Trump, she said, wanted metal detectors to be taken away. I was in the vicinity of the conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, "I don't fucking care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the fucking mags away. Let my people in," she recalled. "They can march in the Capitol from here. Let the people in. Take the fucking mags away." Cheney said Hutchinson's testimony established that Trump was aware that a number of individuals in the crowd had weapons and were wearing body armor. When he spoke at the rally, he urged them then to march to the Capitol. She asked the Americans to reflect on that for a moment. I'll give you a moment, too. Okay. Next takeaway. An irate Trump grabbed the wheel inside the presidential SUV. In one of the hearing's most shocking moments, Hutchinson recalled hearing how Trump turned irate after he was driven away from the ellipse after being told by his security that he could not go to the Capitol to meet supporters. Hutchinson was not in the SUV at the time, but said she had heard the account from Tony Ornato, the senior Secret Service official. Then everyone was back at the White House. Also in the room was Bobby Engel, the head of Trump's security detail. Hutchinson said, quote, "The president said something to the effect of, 'I'm the fucking president. Take me up to the Capitol now.' To which Bobby responded, 'Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing.'" She continued, "The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm and said, 'Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol.' Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge toward Bobby Engel, and when Mr. Ornato recounted this story to me, he motioned toward his clavicles," she said. In a statement later Tuesday, the Secret Service reiterated that it had been cooperating and intended to continue to cooperate to House committees, including by responding on the record to Hutchinson's testimony. Two sources familiar confirmed to ABC News that Trump had indeed requested to go to the Capitol on January 6th and that the Secret Service refused due to security concerns. One of those sources said the former president did return to the vehicle after his speech at the ellipse and asked Engel if he could go to the Capitol, with Engel responding essentially that that was unwise. Another alleged incident of Trump having an outburst, Hutchinson told the committee Tuesday that he threw his lunch at the wall in the White House dining room after learning that then Attorney General Bill Barr's interview with the Associated Press, in which Barr made it clear that the Department of Justice found no evidence of widespread fraud in the election. It wasn't the first time Trump threw a dish or tablecloth in anger, Hutchinson said. Next key point in all this. Key takeaway. Meadows wanted to go to the War Room on January 5th. Hutchinson testified that the White House was aware of a war room assembled in the Willard Hotel in Washington on the night of January 5th. Hutchinson said Trump asked Meadows to speak by phone with Roger Stone, a longtime Trump aide and former National Security Advisor, and former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn on the day before the rally, and that Meadows asked her to look into setting up Secret Service for him to go to the nerve center of the Stop the Steal movement that night. She said she expressed to Meadows she didn't think that was a smart idea or something appropriate for the White House Chief of Staff to attend or be involved in, coming days after she overheard Giuliani mention Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, she testified earlier. Eventually, Meadows dropped the request and said he would dial into the meeting, Hutchinson recalled. Stone, for his part, said through his attorney that he and Meadows did not talk, unequivocally stated Mr. Stone did not speak to or otherwise communicated with Mr. Meadows on January 5th or 6th. Additionally, Mr. Stone did not receive a call from Mr. Meadows on either day, Grant Smith exclusively told ABC News. Flynn, who Trump pardoned in December 2020 for lying to the FBI about conversations with the Russian ambassador, previously appeared before the committee and repeatedly revoked his Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. In a clip played by the committee, Cheney asked Flynn if he believed in the peaceful transition of power. Flynn said the Fifth. She also asked if violence was morally or legally justified that day on January 6th, and his lawyer, before having them answer, first they flicker the footage as if, the camera has a message. There's an issue with the camera. And then they come back, and then the lawyer asked her, what do you mean, morally or legally? And she said both, and he pleaded the Fifth to that. Okay. That's pretty much the bulk of the takeaway here. Now, there is some voices that are trying to refute this, and there's some voices that are backing up. One of the people that is backing up is actually Mick Mulvaney, another ex-Trump official, another high-up Trump official, who says, I don't think she's lying, and vouches for her. This is from rawstory.com. Donald Trump's one-time chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, vouched for the explosive testimony provided by former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson. Mulvaney, who served as Trump's chief of staff before Mark Meadows as the White House Director of Management and Budget, said he believed Hutchinson's testimony and said that other officials she discussed should testify themselves. My guess is that before this is over, we will be hearing testimony from Ornato, Engel, and Meadows, Mulvaney tweeted after Hutchinson described Trump physically attacking his Secret Service detail on January 6th. This is explosive stuff. Mulvaney was referring to the Deputy White House Chief of Staff Tony Ornato and Robert Engel, the Secret Service agent Trump allegedly attacked for refusing to take him to the Capitol in his armored car, also known as the Beast. Mick Mulvaney's tweet goes, my guess is that before this is over, we will be hearing testimony from Ornato, Engel, and Meadows. This is explosive stuff. If Cassidy is making this up, then they will need to say that. If she isn't, then they will have to corroborate. I know her. I don't think she's lying. That's from Mick Mulvaney. Now, of course, Trump has to, of course, weigh in on this, even though this is such a nothing burger and that no one should really be watching this. He's watching this. So, in another raw story, Trump fires back at former aide who testified that he attacked Secret Service agent. I hardly knew her. Former President Donald Trump fired back at former top aide to his chief of staff who testified before the January 6th committee this Tuesday, saying in a post on his Truth Social platform that he hardly knew who she is. Trump made a point during the testimony of Cassidy Hutchinson, who served as Trump's Office of Legislative Affairs, sorry, my mind just went blank for the word, and later as the top aide for the former Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. Clearly, she's just a temp. Who would know her, really? I hardly knew this person, Cassidy Hutchinson is, other than I heard very negative things about her, a total phony and a leaker. And when she requested to go with certain others of the team to Florida after my having served a full term in office, I personally turned her request down. Wow. Why did she want to go? This is continuing upon what his quote said on the Truth Social network of his. I mean, let's reread this. This person who worked in legislative affairs and was a chief aide to Mark Meadows. You know, this nobody, right? I hardly knew this person, Cassidy Hutchinson. I'm rereading this. Other than I heard very negative things about her, a total phony and a leaker. And when she requested to go with certain others of the team to Florida after my having served a full term in office, I personally turned her request down. Why did she want to go with us if she felt we were so terrible? I understand that she's very upset and angry that I didn't want her to go or be a member of the team. She is bad news. Hutchinson testified that she heard Trump say the Secret Service should take away metal detectors and let all his supporters in for the Stop the Steal rally on January 6th at the White House before the Capitol riot, even though some of them were carrying weapons. She also said the White House Chief of Staff on January 6th told her Trump was so mad when he could not go to the Capitol that he lunged at the steering wheel and then at the Secret Security agent. Secret Service agent. Well, that is all entirely interesting. An unqualified, disqualified piece of shit. This I have said for years. More than likely, I probably said this on my very first YouTube video. Probably said this on my very first Facebook video, which was the first outing in me doing these political rants. Now, already I've seen people, throw up, some refuting on her testimony, questioning her account of what happened in the Beast, and trying to, logistically go, no, that couldn't be possible that happened because there's like a partition. She couldn't have reached in. The president has the button for that partition. He can lift it himself, so that's fine. Now, Peter Alexander also did a tweet saying, source close to the Secret Service agent and the chauffeur of the Beast, saying that they are willing to testify to refute this. Okay, well, good. So here's the thing, and for people who want to not want to believe what she's saying, or want to obviously disbelieve it, or think they can refute it, okay, fine, refute it. But again, here's the thing. She said all this under oath, under penalty of perjury. She did this. And why is this such a major thing? Is she has an account that is on the record that can be corroborated. If you want to refute her, then you have to be on the record. You have to go to the committee meeting, put your hand up, put the other hand on the Bible, or affirm however you want to be, take the oath under penalty of perjury, and refute it. Right now, there's few people in Trump world that wants to go and do that. And one of the people that doesn't want to do it is Pat Cipollone. Again, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, excuse me. Which is kind of weird. Now, he's a White House legal advisor. So he has been refusing thus far over privileged communication with the president. Now, we've heard this before. Some people try to skate on that, whatever. But here's the weird thing. Her testimony actually puts him in a really good light in everything that was going on. One of the loudest voices that was trying to keep Trump from falling off the cliff here into Looney Town was him. And being very specific and very clear about it. So his testimony would be really, really interesting if he wants to go out and be brave enough to do so. Now, during the committee meeting, when they were getting a testimony about people in the crowds with weapons, okay, they also, along with the testimony, they also had police radio signals going back and forth, talking about people in the crowd with weapons, with guns that they observed, and a cop telling to one cop, another cop telling the other cops. You hear urgency in the voices. There were people that went through the metal detectors that were allowed to be that close to the ellipse with the president at the time. Everyone else had to be back by the Washington Monument. And these are the majority of the people who refused to go through the metal detectors and those who were actually actively carrying weapons. Now, I've been thinking all day as to the significance of the one crowd that's being at the ellipse and the other crowd being at the Washington Monument, and how to get them from there to the Capitol, right? And then it occurs to me, Trump wanted them that close, not only for the fact of the crowd size, because, we need to have the largest crowd possible. Have you noticed lately, by the way, that, over the years when he would have rallies, he would want the cameras turned around so he can see all the crowds of people, and now he doesn't want that done anymore? Everyone's got to be compacted so it looks like there's a lot of people, but don't pull back or anything. But the other point is that you would also have these armed people, armed Trump supporters, who are already being revved up and have been revved up for days and weeks coming up to this event in January 6th, from the advertisements going on by Lynn Wood and the others on Parler, talking about this was going to be 1776 moment, which apparently Trump believed. So, could it be that if these people were actually at the ellipse and started marching to the Capitol, they wouldn't be in the back row en masse with their weapons, but in the front row en masse with weapons? Could we have a much different scene when they broke through and broke into the Capitol if the front rank of those people are those with the pistols and the rifles, AR-15s, the bear sprays, and body armor? So, I guess logistically, all those people were all in the back while the events of January 6th was going on and the break-ins were going on. And in my head, for weeks weeks and months and so forth, since we've been dealing with January 6th, since when it happened, that what would have happened if the crowd that broke through was armed, truly armed? Not only disrupting irrevocably the certification process, what if they did nab Mike Pence? And that was another one of those key takeaways in the testimony that wasn't part of the ABC News here thing, was when the crowd was getting closer, Cassidy Hutchinson was testifying that Mark Meadows didn't look nervous, didn't have a worry back in the White House. He was just sitting there on his phone on the couch. And she's trying to explain to him, because the TV was on. They were watching this, and he was just, whatever. And the crowd was getting closer and closer and closer to the Capitol. And she had tried to think about something, tried to draw anything out of him during this moment. And she talked about Jim Jordan and his, his anti-certification speech. And he said, yeah. And, the crowd is getting closer to the Capitol. Yeah. Well, Jim Jordan's in the Capitol. And that's when he reacted and says that he's going to try to call Jim Jordan. Now, the other matter was like when they talked about, you know, the crowd shouting "Hang Mike Pence." Then they heard that when they was talking about it between the officials and Mark Meadows said flat out, Trump doesn't want to do anything about them. Flat out, doesn't want to do a thing about them as they're breaking in. And when they started chanting about hang Mike Pence, he doesn't want to do anything about it. They're not doing anything wrong. Mike Pence deserves it. Really? Your own vice president. He deserves it. He deserves it because he actually followed his fucking job as opposed to trying to help you become a dictator. The part about him throwing his lunch, which is now becoming a meme. Thank you, Internet. You always do good. Throwing his lunch, splattering ketchup on the wall, because Attorney General Bill Barr told the Associated Press that the DOJ couldn't find any of the election fraud. And he's all pissed off about it. All the while, shit is going down at the Capitol. But this is the thought process in his mind. So when Bill Barr shows up, and then the first time, and this is part of the testimony, and the first time that the first thing that comes out is us, you know, about I'm sorry, just displeased you, whatever, and if you want my resignation, and Trump goes, poof, accepted. Okay, all right, whatever. Wow. He knew there were weapons in the crowd. He wanted the crowd at the ellipse. Could it be the ellipse is closer to the Capitol building than the Washington Monument? He wanted to be there. Which is amazing. Which actually is amazing personally to me, because he's usually a coward and in this sort of matter. But he wanted to be there. And was so pissed off that he couldn't be there that he tried to jerk the wheel and then try to throttle his Secret Service agent. Because he's so pissed that he couldn't be there. He spent hours and hours watching this unfold. Watched it while people were calling him to release the National Guard. While people were wanting him to make a statement to stop the people from doing it. From staffers, to Hannity, to Laura Ingraham, to McInerney, to his own family, all pleading for him to either make a statement to mollify these people and make them go home. And the first statement he came out with was so milquetoast, so barely legible in the point of them doing something wrong. He didn't want to tell them they were doing something wrong. And then when that was ineffective, he did a full-on video where he says that we love you very much, but it's time to go home. It's time to go home. We love you very much. Yeah. Had those of his supporters that was actually armed who have been in the front rank, instead of just the body wave of people who were just grabbing shit and beating cops, if the gunfire was actually done, if they were broke in armed, would the outcome be different? I do not believe it is melodramatic or an exaggeration to suggest that had the people who were armed, who were in the front rank when they broke into the Capitol, that the certification would have been disrupted. Congressmen and senators would legitimately have their lives threatened. Mike Pence's life would be legitimately threatened. And regardless of how violent it would get from this point, if there was actual gunfire traded back and forth, an endgame move would be Trump declaring martial law and suspending the certification, effectively keeping him as president. And I'm sure prolonging for the future time and when the certification would happen, and that probably wouldn't even happen until all those machinations of fake electors and bullshit get their little ducks in a row. He wanted that. He wanted to be there to encourage it, to sow the seeds of it. Would he throw Mike Pence under the bus? You goddamn right he would. All the while he watched, he was happy and excited at all the violence of his people. He called it his people. Look at them. Look at them fighting for me. Because that's all this is. This is about him. Certainly not about a president of the United States who's caring about his country. It's about him. I'm going to do a video later on, unless there's like another one of these January 6th things that comes on that will requires my attention to rant out into the void. But I'm really thinking of doing a video upon the basic degeneration of our politics. And it is not just Trump that we're having this slide to civility and no longer giving a shit about facts or anything that you can prove. As long as you can say it, that's enough. Trump's a big part of that, but Trump is a symptom, not the cause. He's the glaring example. And it's an example that is being followed by the people that are coming after him. I was talking to somebody today who I got him to check out my videos, and he's a Republican, but he liked how brave I am and so forth of me coming out and doing this. And me and him having a conversation, and I let him know flat out that if Larry Hogan, the Republican governor of Maryland, if he was going to run for president, then I would have little qualms by taking a walk to the right to vote for that as opposed to Biden, because I have a lot of things about Biden that I'm not really keen on voting for when he goes in for the second round of this. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing any vibrant Democrats right now that is going to capture the imagination of the people to try to represent all of us and not try to do it with the hair on fire, elaborate nonsense. And of course, right now with the midterms coming up, people are going to be like, panicked and running scared upon they're going to be losing majorities, the razor-thin majorities, I might add. I have some moments of optimism that the certain things that happened in the last few days might light a fire under people who claim to be in the majority on certain issues, that they will come out and vote in the midterms. I hope so. But the byproduct of this, especially in establishment politics, in terms of establishment Democrat politics, is that if some certain topics, certain groups of people who are being marginalized, who are being demonized successfully propagandized and demonized by these people on the other side. If supporting these people becomes too hot to handle for the establishment, then they will not mention that. No, let's not mention them. Let's not show the solidarity that these are regular folk. No. This is a nice, lovely closet. And we'll just shove them into there until after the midterms. When we get if we keep the majorities, then we'll talk about them, sure. While you shove them in. See, that's one of the fears that I have, and it's one of the things I'm talking about when it talks about degenerative politics. And we'll get into that when we get into that. That's a different topic. Kind of. It's kind of a different topic. But yeah, I am running out of reasons to voting for Biden. Please, any other Democrats, step up, please. So I don't have to feel weird upon but my only caveat is that Larry Hogan is probably the only one. None of the other Republicans of a national name who cowered under Trump deserves my respect or my vote. But the one thing that would drive me to vote for Biden again, if Trump's name is there on 2024, the same guy that we've gone through everything in the past 4 years of his presidency, and to the very end of his presidency, when he tried to become a dictator, tried to incite the people to go in, break in, and halt the certification so he can maintain his presidency as a dictator. Before he was unqualified, before he was disqualified, now legitimately he is disqualified. What he attempted to do is completely and utterly un-American. He doesn't deserve it. And he doesn't deserve you falling on your swords for him. He asks a lot of things for you, especially donations, because of the Stop the Steal and the election fraud. He's making so much money off of that bullshit. That's not going to anywhere else but him. Because in the end, it's all about him. Now maybe, again, from the last video I discussed him, maybe there is just something that you are entertained by him and you just want to see it because it's just entertaining. But it's not something that is conducive for our country anymore. And it's only getting worse because the example was set. He won his election, he was president, and all of the political norms went throughout the window. You no longer need to prove anything. You don't need to say anything factual. You just need to say it. And to segue this back into the original point of this video is that they're doing this now on this lady. Cassidy Hutchinson was very brave to come out to testify. How many people were not that brave? How many people were refuting what she's trying to say under oath, but will not go under oath themselves to do so? Could what she's saying could be wrong? Thought up differently? Embroidered differently? Absolutely! We have to entertain the thought that, this is not like, oh, no, clear, crystal clear. But the thing is that if you do not step up and sign and be under oath like she is, then all you're doing is this. Now, again, in this era of Trump and post-Trump, with these other politicians and all the talking heads, podcasters, news media, it's just saying it is enough. For what people used to tout for this country to be the shining city on the hill, just saying it should not be enough. Proving it. Putting your neck on the line as you raise your hand in testimony, under oath. Things that the legal counsel didn't want to do. Mark Meadows doesn't want to do. Various other people don't want to do. Those who do try to, those are kind of on the fence of testifying. Oh, we'll testify unless you fulfill this little list of things to make sure I don't get in trouble or anything. And amidst all of this, at the end of the committee hearing, they showed notes, emails, text that was sent to certain witnesses. These witnesses were not named because they're still on the fence of testifying or not. But the basic gist was that the people that was texting them was saying, well, we know you're supportive of Trump. You're still on Trump's team. So when you go out there and testify, keep in mind that we know that you're on Trump's team, and Trump is watching, and he reads transcripts. Make sure he knows that you're still on Trump's team. Witness tampering. So we got the assault on the Secret Service agent, and because he wanted to go to the Capitol. If he actually had the hand on the wheel and turned, just the very thought that him doing that and succeedingly turning the wheel, causing a traffic accident and a car crash. And now witness tampering, just to make sure you're on Trump's team. Make sure you're on Trump's team because he's watching. He's watching you. Oh, Jesus. And the another funny part about all this is I'm kind of like calming down here, is that, this testimony has no cross-examination. It's not really a legal, not really a legal thing here. But there could have been cross-examination. There could have been Trump-loyal Republicans on there that could have questioned her, trying to break down her statements at the behest of him, obviously. But since the start of this, they didn't want to be on here. They didn't want to be part of the committee meeting. They didn't want to be part of this political circus. And he thought that was a good idea. Kevin McCarthy thought it was a good idea to pull Republicans out of there. So you leave a vacuum of no one cross-examining. And the funny part is that you can't say that the Democrats pushed you out. You can't say that. You left. You can't say that this is just a political theater that's not fair, that's just slanted to one side. You can't say that because you could have been there. The balance was there. They were eager for you to be there, no matter how, grandstandingly nonsense you were going to be. The shirt sleeves, Jim Jordans of committee meetings. The long speeches that take up all the time, because Lord knows we wouldn't want the person to testify, because they might say something that Cassidy Hutchinson herself said, and we wouldn't want that to happen, now would you, Jim? Or Kevin? Or Matt Gates? Or Margie? Or Bobert? Ironically enough, how many of those names were also on the names of congressional members who wanted pardons on and about and after January 6th? Now, why would people need pardons if they didn't do anything wrong? I don't know. Now, my friend on Middle America, Vin of Middle America, he's going to do another one of these, as I do, hopefully afterwards. And he brought up a point when he was talking about it, saying that he hesitated about getting into the January 6th stuff because he doesn't think Trump people would, believe it. Or even if they didn't believe it, they were going to follow it, or they're just going to tune it out. That's entirely possible. Yeah, okay. But it still needs to be talked about. And just because people can't accept reality, because their idol doesn't accept reality and they live vicariously off of him, because he is wealthy enough to live in a world without consequence, so therefore why can't we? This has to be talked about. And again, whenever Trump brings up, the person that got killed is, Ashley Babbitt. Why does anyone, investigate the Capitol Police because of them shooting Ashley Babbitt? For her, just innocently breaking through a door, trying to crawl their way through a door, already inside the building, and getting shot by a guard who was doing his fucking job. That is what he's supposed to do. Protect the members of Congress. And a threat was coming through the door. Hang Mike Pence. That's not threatening, right? Oh, they're not doing anything wrong. It's Mike Pence that was doing wrong. Says the dictator. Yeah, that's what he is. He's not a dictator. He's a dictator. That's what he gets. That's what that there's this little laurel leaf crown for him. Because his insurrection failed. Because he doesn't know how to conduct an insurrection. The people around them that tried were a little bit too obvious. Too many social media posts. There's a Capitol Police bulletin that they talked about in the January 6th committee meeting, where days prior, the Capitol Police bulletin read that unlike other post-election protests, the protesters, namely the Proud Boys, were the Oath Keepers. We were suspecting them, instead of going after the counter-protests, they were going to go after members of Congress. This was already in the water. Which again, I go back to, had those people who were really armed were in the front rank as opposed to all the way in the back, might have succeeded. You might have had your dictator, but instead you just have your dictator. But Trump will be fine. He's already making bank off of this. Stirring you up and inciting you to keeping you pissed so you can give him money, as well as the adulation his poor little emotional stability needs. knew for days that it was going to be violent. They encouraged that violence. You can see that from the posts from Parler, from his Twitter. You know, January 6th is going to be wild. Trump's words. Giuliani. Oh, we're going to go and we're going to get the Capitol. We're marching on the Capitol. Isn't that fun? He's going to look so strong. The sycophants. Sucking on the mushroom. To make sure that they get their bits. Did I do well? Did I do well? And like it said in the last committee hearing, where all the crazy folk who knew what the score was, knew that all the election fraud stuff was bullshit, testified that way. He couldn't conduct his dictator rise from the White House. He just had to sit there and watch and hoped. He hoped that, you know, they would do it for him and that they will fight for him. They broke in, yay! They want to hang Mike Pence, yay! He deserves it. He didn't want them to stop. They did not want them to stop. For 3 hours. Not calling any National Guards, and you know when the National Guard was finally came, they're already leaving. They're mopping up what was left. Risk the lives of people for over the fucking election loss, over an election fraud claim that he was saying weeks and months before election day. He was already setting it up in the ethers that was, if he loses, there'll be election fraud. Which, keep in mind, is something that he also said in 2016. Don't you remember that? We're too busy on Russiagate to notice that he actually said that in 2016 too? You know, again, this is like, we are all stuck reading this book. Our only interactions in this political world, this machination, this reality, is that we're reading this book, so we see it. We see the breadcrumbs right there. What is going to happen? The villain is doing his Shakespearean soliloquy, telling you what he's going to do, while these dopes on stage are pretending, hey, I didn't hear any of that. Because that's what soliloquies are. And we're like, no, no, no. No character, no one is picking this up. You know, I said years ago, during the Trump administration, you know, that 20 years down the line, our younger generations is going to look at us like we're fucking insane as to why did we not stop it? You knew that he was unstable, that he was not qualified or disqualified for the office. You knew it. And I don't know if they're going to ask that of me, because I'm going to say, hey, I voted against him. I was very vocal about this. And to the point of ridicule of others of how I feel. But there are people who knew better. Who have mainstream, mainline jobs in positions of authority that knew better and yet enabled him and been sycophantic to him, which allowed not only to embolden him, but to embolden anyone that comes after him that thinks, hey, that was a winning formula there, let's try that. And then we got, you know, congressional members, or congressional candidates, excuse me, we won't name any fucking names or anything, but doing their own little ads going after rhinos. Having their ads taking off of Facebook and Twitter because they show a video of him, you know, Mr. G.I. Joe in fatigues and in the body armor. We're going to break into this house of this rhino. Republican in name only. He's going to go after them in his little ad of being fully armed and armored with cops looking to arrest rhinos. Not even Democrats anymore. Just anyone who was a hint of disloyal to Trump. Not the country, Trump. You know, people were pretty fanatical over Ronald Reagan. I'm old enough to remember some of that. Venerated him. Considered him like a saint for the Republican Party. The GOP became the GOP because of Reagan. Clearly not my brand of politics. But there's still something respectable about Reagan. There's almost something respectable about Nixon, even though Nixon was a scumbag. But Reagan and Nixon, far better than Trump. That is an amazing statement to make, especially on the Nixon part. You can get away with the Reagan stuff because, you know, events that happened during the Cold War, during the 80s, that Reagan, while being there, could take credit for, and people do give him like single-handed credit of, you know, ending the Cold War. It wasn't the presidents that came before him in these long years that slowly, meticulously negotiated with the Soviet Union and the trials and tribulations and the events and the little satellite wars and proxies and bullshit. No, it was just him saying, Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Single-handedly. Single-handedly. Still better than Trump. And that again, circling back a little bit, only way that I would ever vote for Biden again if Trump's is the other name. If Trump's not the other name and you have another Republican there, then we might have to have something to discuss in terms of who would be the better person. Because I hate to tell it to you, my Democratic friends here, but Biden is the last bastion of the 20th century where certain things were fine at the time in the general lexicon of behaviors and words and statements and actions and policy that is no longer effective or worthy of it in 2022 or 2023 or 2024. You're not going to get a crime bill out of him of calling people super predators in 2024. You are not going to get Biden having an issue about busing and worrying about his children going through the jungle because of busing with certain other people. And you can't fix the border. You can't fix the situation of the border if you're just continuing what Trump was doing. Which is always amazing to me upon how I hear about Republicans who are trying to bash Biden of like, oh, it's an open policy. He just opened the border. Nothing like Trump. He's just opening the border. When and fucking where? In fact, it's funny. There were a couple of tweets from the GOP that talked about how bad Biden is on the border because they caught a number of people on the terrorist watch list at the border. See how bad it is? Yeah, they got caught. They didn't come in. Or they talk about all the drugs that were confiscated at the border. You know, this is how bad things are in Biden's America because all the drugs that are at the border were caught. Hello. Reality. Do we all live it? That is what it means. That was actually doing a good job. If they weren't caught, then they would be in here. If the drugs weren't caught, they would be in here. The bad part about that is that Biden is doing what Trump was doing. And somehow you have a problem with that. We had that discussion when on January 20th, where suddenly Republicans were all mortally shocked at what was going on at the border when they were just fine with it a month before. not going to vote for Biden because of the border. Because that's no different than Trump. But still, spade is a fucking spade. Credit where credit is due. Reality. If you're going to be whining about the border when the same thing is happening now as was happening then, you're just looking for things to bitch about. I'm sure we're going to get more January 6th committee hearings. And if it's anything as truly explosive as this is, and if you don't think it is, then you should encourage those who could refute Cassidy Hutchinson to testify under oath. Fingers crossed if they actually do, because if they don't, if nobody does that is in the know in the situation, then it's her word under oath, under penalty of perjury, in a far better position no matter who it is who refuses to do so, including the great big bad Donald Trump, who can't even get on his own social networks, his own personal social media, where he posts his opinion in his thing on this, while at the same time his truth social media bans anybody who talks about the January 6th committee meetings. How fucking hypocritical bullshit is that? Fuck him. And I'm going to end this video on that sentiment. Fuck him. Y'all, hope you enjoyed me ranting and raving. Hope you liked me in my spiffy glasses. In my nice shirt. I will see you next time. Hopefully on the video I was referring to about the degeneration of our politics. The ranter rants. Because the urge to rant is always rising. And I will see you later.